The
you say you must read the Commission report. I'm reading the Commission report, and I've written down a quote from it. Political pressures on the media affect the exercise of freedom of the press. That's directly quoted from the Commission report.
Well, the Commission report is wrong in that statement, because yes, there's a media company in Turkey that is dealing with a tax fine.
Doyan, the biggest private media corporation in your country.
It's not only a media corporation, it's also in banking, it's also in insurance, it's also in construction and tourism. Yeah, it's a huge company.
And people won't necessarily know this, but it's faced with a tax claim from the government, which amounts to more than its annual turnover, runs into billions of US dollars. Now, the Enlargement Commissioner here in Brussels, Olli Rehn, says, and I'm quoting, "This may not only be a tax sanction," he says, "it seems like a political sanction." And those are the words of the Commissioner.
Well, if we were to impose a tax fine on a bank, would that be interpreted as Turkey is trying to limit the freedom of banking? No industry or no company is immune from paying their taxes. The same company had been fined with tax fines in the past, and they chose to settle. They chose to settle with the Ministry of Finance, and they paid the fines, and they closed their cases. This time, they also have the right to settle, which they are conducting the talks, and if they choose not to settle, they have the right to go to the independent courts. And the courts in Turkey are as independent as to open closure cases against the ruling party. 85% of the companies that choose not to settle and take their cases to the courts win their cases because they have strong cases. And this company will also have the same privileges.
It's not just about press freedom, it's also about political freedom. There's another very, very well-known case in Turkey. It's been running for 2 years now, the Ergenekon case, which involves allegations of a coup plot against the democratically elected government. It involves allegations that people from the media, from the army, and the underworld all were involved in a conspiracy to bring down your government. Now, these are the words of the former Justice Minister, Aysel Çelikul, who said the investigation, that is the Ergenekon investigation, which has taken in hundreds of people now, is being used as a tool to sweep through civic society and cleanse Turkey of all secular opponents. That's a former Justice Minister speaking.
The Commission report we were discussing talks about this Ergenekon case, and it seizes this case as a
test. It says it's a test.
It's not only a test, it's also an opportunity to make Turkey a more democratic country. This case is based on a lot of evidence and captured weapons and explosives and drawings.
And a lot of wild allegations. One allegation, according to Gareth Jenkins, an academic who studied the 2,400 pages of the first draft indictment, he said in there that he found an allegation that the conspirators had met with Dick Cheney, the US vice president at the time, to discuss toppling the government. Do you think that's really credible?
I don't know. I'm not a part of this case, and I'm not a legal expert.
It's fantastical.
But if the prosecutor wrote this in the indictment, he must base it on some kind of evidence according to Turkish law. Either he has a document or a statement or an article which he has to base that allegation on.
We have seen already, haven't we, in the last year, Turkey conducting a fundamental realignment of its foreign policy away from this sort of lockstep alliance with the West, looking toward Iran, looking toward the Islamic world in a very different way. Why is that happening?
Turkey, for centuries, has been very proud of serving as a bridge between Europe and Asia, a bridge between East and West, a bridge between Islam and Christianity, a bridge between energy resources and energy consumers.
No, I understand that. You did say that already, but I'm asking you something specific
And in order for a bridge to be stable, it has to have at least two strong legs. Turkey had ignored one of the legs for decades. What Turkey is doing right now is strengthening both legs of this bridge.
Yeah, but let's be specific.
Enhanced relations with Iran, with Syria, with Armenia, with Georgia are not an alternative to our relations with Europe. They're complementary.
Some Europeans might wonder about that. When they see, and I'm going to quote to you directly, when they see Prime Minister Erdogan going to Tehran, meeting not just with Ahmadinejad, but with Supreme Leader Khamenei as well, calling Iran Turkey's friend, describing Iran's nuclear program as, quote, peaceful and humanitarian, and calling Western pressure on Iran, quote, arrogant, Members of the European Union might wonder whether this is a Turkey that really wants to join the European club.
It's the same Prime Minister Erdogan who's meeting President Obama on the 7th of December in the Oval Office,
Well, that may be,
trying
so.
to find a breakthrough in this difficulty. We have a saying in Turkish: if your neighbor's house is on fire and if you don't help them put it out, the fire will eventually burn your house. We're trying to prevent new fires in our part of the world. We're trying to build peace. We're trying to negotiate between Afghanistan and Pakistan, simultaneously between Bosnia and Serbia, simultaneously between Israel and Syria, between Iraq and Syria, between Russia and Georgia, because we want to prevent fires in our part of the world.
Understood, Minister. But you are the chief negotiator trying to get Turkey into the European Union. The European Union is building a common foreign and defence policy. That's a key pillar now of what the European Union wants to do.
And Turkey is the most important asset of that common policy.
But hang on a minute, this isn't a common policy.
As the rest of Europe.
Turkey, when Turkey describes Iran's nuclear program as peaceful and humanitarian, when Turkey invites the exiled leader of Hamas to Turkey for very warm and cordial talks, this is not a position or a stance.
The exiled leader of Hamas was invited almost 3 years ago to be told that they have to recognize the existence of the state of Israel. And when Turkey calls
this is a man
Iran
who the
a
European
friend,
Union regards as a terrorist. Accept that?
well, Yasser Arafat was also regarded as a terrorist.
But if
later
you
on,
he was given the Nobel Peace. You have to accept.
Later on, he was given the Nobel Peace Prize for his contributions to peace in the Middle East. Things change. 10 years ago,
are you or are you not prepared to accept the common stands on foreign policy that the European takes? Because at the moment you're a million miles from the European Union
we're not a million
position.
miles ahead. We are willing to accept as long as we are involved as equal partners in the process of the decision making. If we contribute to the planning of that decision making, of those policies, we will of course abide by it.
A final thought on that. It requires patience. The Turkish people, we've talked about the European Union, but the Turkish people don't necessarily have the patience. Polls suggest that fewer Turks now believe that Turkey will ultimately be a full member of the European Union than did 4 years ago. They're losing faith, and ultimately your government will have to decide whether to wash its hands, stop what some Turks see as a humiliating process, and go elsewhere.
My government will not give up. My government will continue the accession talks as long as it's based on fair and objective approach. 60% of my nation today, according to the polls I get, and I do get the polls every month, want my country to join EU. But when we ask them, do you think Turkey will be admitted to EU, only 40% of them say yes. The difference of 20% is due to the statements of some short-sighted politicians in Europe who are trying to reject Turkey to prevent Turkey from coming into the club where they enjoy some privileges. But Turkey waited for 45 years just to get a date to start the accession talks. This shows that Turkey is determined and Turkey has the patience. We are ready, willing and able. Just like 18 million Eastern Germans became full and equal citizens of EU overnight without even going through any negotiations whatsoever, the day for that great rendezvous will come and Turkey will become a full member of European Union. I have no doubt.
Egemen Bagis, thank you very much for being on Hard Talk.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.